Diana Everett-Snyder, coming to you from Wide Awake News this Monday. Last week I had spoken quite extensively about this, that, and everything else, but what I ended up with and then ran out of time with was this whole concept of nanotechnology and the way in which the human body is being affected and the reasons why, along with my guest, Ron Angel. I don't have a guest today, but what was interesting is all the feedback that I got, and it was a really mixed bag. There were those people that, of course, really know a lot about the whole nano technology issue, and they were kind of bummed that I ran out of time last week because that's what they were waiting for. And then there was this other group of people that were nano what? So I decided that today I wouldn't have a guest, and I was really just going to focus on a lot of the things that I was sort of accused of glossing over last week. So that's today's show. And of course, I am obligated to read you something that was written by Edward Bernays. And it's this: the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. So, let's put that aside. Right off the bat, I want to remind you that our federal government spends $13 billion a year to classify information as secret. That's a kind of little eye-opener right there. All right. The dangers of simplification, because I realize that there are so many people that are going about their lives completely oblivious to everything that's going on, absolutely everything. And this is part of the danger of simplification, and it's also part of what we call the normalcy bias, and I've mentioned this in my shows before. So for those of you that don't understand the normalcy bias, this is something you need to Google because it's very interesting. And essentially, it's this, that just because things are a certain way, people believe that things will always be that way. And you only have to look around in nature to understand that things go in cycles, and things are not always static. We don't live in a static world. And the human dynamic is anything but static. Our world is very fast-paced, and we're expected to take in more and more, and we're so used to labels and labeling groups and labeling kids and labeling job descriptions. And then we put these things in this little box, and then we're done. And we need to be able to evolve our thoughts and not leave these little boxes on the shelves in our mind. So, moving on. Something I want you to Google is the Clearfield Doctrine, which is an incredibly interesting document that talks about our government. Our seat of government has been surrendered 3 times, if not more. But the Clearfield Doctrine outlines those 3 quite specifically. There are 2 chains of command, as we know. There's the state and the federal. But there's only one little section that I wanted to read to you, and that is this: the Department of the Treasury and the IRS. The IRS is an agency of Interpol. The Memorandum of Understanding, which is the MOA, between the Secretary of the Treasury, the International Monetary Fund, and the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, pay the IRS. The IRS operates under the public policy and not constitutional law. The IRS is the agents of our nation's creditors. It's perfectly legal, but the Attorney General is the permanent representative to Interpol, and the Secretary of the Treasury is the alternate member. Under Article 30 of the Interpol Constitution, these members must abstain from advising Interpol's Secretary General. They can only take orders. All right. I want you to Google the Clearfield Doctrine because it premises so much of what we're going to do today, but I really, I have less than an hour, so it's not something that I can go into. I'm going to read you this, which is incredibly important. It's called the U.S. Military Civil Disturbance Planning the war at home. Because under the heading of civil disturbance planning, the U.S. military trained troops and police to suppress domestic opposition in America. The master plan, Department of Defense Civil Disturbance Plan 55-2, was codenamed Operation Garden Plot, and it originated in 1968. So, and of course, there's a lot of things that happened before 1968, but because of our current president's signing of the NDAA and the implications of the NDAA, because the media today says, well, the NDAA is nothing to be concerned about, nothing to see here, keep shopping, keep clipping coupons. It's just updates of previous executive orders, and it's just to keep things current. And most people, of course, have bought into that, and they just keep moving along and go shopping and clip coupons. But the NDAA amended many of the articles that were that originated in 1968 and around that time, between 1968 and 1992. The operational plan, of course, as I just said, has been updated over the last 3 decades, and the previous 2 decades are what saw the foundation of that documentation. Current U.S. military preparations for suppressing domestic civil disturbances, including the training of National Guard troops and police, are actually a long part of the American internal security history, dating back to the first American Revolution. Generally, these measures have sought to thwart the aims of social justice movements, embodying the concept that within the civilian body politic lurks an enemy that one day the enemy might have to fight, or at least be ordered to fight. Equipped with flexible military operations in urban terrain and operations other than war doctrine, lethal and less than lethal high-tech weaponry, U.S. armed forces and elite militarized police units are being trained to eradicate disorder, disturbance, and civil disobedience in America. Further, it's very well that police, military, civil, paramilitary units, and all of these are a growth which coincidentally mirrors the rising levels of police violence directed at the American people, particularly non-white, the poor, and working people. Ominously, many assume that the training of military and police forces to suppress outlawed behavior of civilians, along with the creation of extensive and sophisticated emergency social response networks set to spring into action in the event of civil unrest, is prudent and acceptable in a democracy. And yet, doesn't this assumption beg the question as to what civil unrest is? What is civil unrest? We could argue, for example, that civil disturbance is nothing less than democracy in action. A message to the powers that be that people want change. In this instance, disturbing behavior may actually be the exercising of one's right to resist oppression. Unfortunately, the American corporate military directorship and dictatorship, which is emerging, which has the power to enforce its definition of disorder, sees democracy as a threat and a permanent counter-revolution as a national security requirement. If you wish, you can Google asymmetric warfare groups. These are United States Army units created during the War on Terrorism to mitigate various threats with regard to asymmetric warfare. They have special mission units, and they are a part of American Special Ops. And on that note, I have mentioned this book before, and I highly recommend that you get it. The author is Radley Balko, and the name of the book is The Rise of the Warrior Cop. I'm just going to put that in there. I'll probably remember to say it again at some point, because the military corporate sponsors of Garden Plot had their reasons for civil disturbance contingency planning. Let's call it the paranoia of the thief. Their rationale was simple: self-preservation. Fostering severe and targeted austerity, massive inequality, and unbridled greed, while shifting more and more billions to the generals and the rich, the deregulated entities of force, and their interlocking corporate directors knew quite well what their policies were engendering, namely a growing resistance, which, if you look around, is coming to fruition. Consequently, they are systematically organizing to protect their interests, their profits, and their criminal conspiracies. To this end, they are rapidly consolidating an infrastructure of repression designed to suppress rebellion against their authority, or more conveniently put, to suppress rebellion against the authority of the United States. And if anyone's listened to my previous shows, you understand that the United States is not the United States of America, where we, the people of the United States of America, reside. The United States is U.S. Incorporated. Okay. About 10 years ago, I say recently, it depends on how old you are, it's your categorization of recently, Pentagon spokesman Kenneth Bacon acknowledged that the Air Force wrongfully started and financed a highly classified secret project known as a black program without informing Congress. This and numerous other documents reveal U.S. military training in civil disturbance suppression, which targets the American people, and illustrates that it is in full operation. It is on green light. The formulation of legitimizing doctrine, the training in the tactics and techniques of civil disturbance suppression, and the use of abusive non-lethal weaponry are ongoing, and they are financed by tax dollars. According to the Pentagon, U.S. forces deployed to assist federal and local authorities during times of civil disturbances will follow use of force policy found in the Department of Defense Civil Disturbance Plan Garden Plot. And this is the Joint Chiefs of Staff Standing Rules of Engagement, Appendix A. This was put together in October of 1994. In July of 1967, President Johnson issued Executive Order 11365, which established the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders. It's more commonly known as the Kerner Commission. And another thing for you to go and Google. The creation of the commission came hot on the heels of the violence in Detroit, a conflict which left 43 dead and several hundred wounded, and over 5,000 people homeless. The executive order established the commission, which called for an investigation of the origins of recent major civil disorders and the influence, if any, of organizations or individuals dedicated to the incitement or encouragement of violence. Now, for those of you who don't really remember that, you only have to look to the recent marches that we've had. The Occupy movement, the march against Monsanto, the march against chemtrails. In these types of situations, you, the people of the United States of America, are the de facto enemy of United States Incorporated and all of the people that I've just mentioned. Now, the work of the commission was funded from President Johnson's emergency fund, and the executive order sought recommendations in 3 general areas: short-term measures to prevent riots, better measures to control riots once they begin, and long-term measures to eliminate riots in the future. The 2 immediate aims were to control and repress black rioters using almost any available means, and to assure white America that everything was in hand. So this was a condition of the times. We have moved on since then. Commission members included a whole lot of very interesting names, and I'm just going to read a few. Litton Industries, members of the Defense Industry Advisory Council to the Department of Defense, National Security Industrial Association, President and CEO of North American Rockwell Corporation, Herbert Jenkins, who was the Atlanta Chief of Police and President of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. That should give you pause for thought. During the early stages of staff recruitment, it was described thus, that the process as a war strategy was crucial to the future of U.S. Inc., of United States. And as I've said in previous shows, you need to understand and you need to listen when people are talking on television and when you are reading things in the media, because you will notice that it's always United States. It's not the United States of America. There is a huge divide that needs to be more clearly understood. And here's a kicker. A key player within the commission, who was a consultant, his name was Anthony Downs, he stated that at the time, it would be far cheaper to repress future large-scale urban violence through police and military action than to pay for effective programs against remaining poverty. So it's cheaper for them to suppress any disagreements that the people may have with the government than to address the issues that the people have with the government. As for the military, 12 generals representing various branches of the armed services appeared before the commission or served as contractors. Now, the Kerner Commission study of civil disorder led directly to civilian recommendations regarding the role of the military in domestic affairs. And the report dutifully recommends that the Army be in an advanced status of training, a perpetual state of training to take care of civil unrest. Under the heading Army Response to Civil Disorders, the Commission report states that the commitment of federal troops to aid state and local forces in controlling a disorder is an extraordinary act. An Army Staff Task Group has recently examined and reviewed a wide range of topics relating to military operations to control urban disorders, command and control, logistics, training, planning, doctrine, personnel, public information, intelligence, intelligence gathering, intelligence dissemination, and legal aspects. The results of the Army Brass's study was subsequently made known to the National Guard. It's important that it was made available to the National Guard and to the Sheriff's Department, because you won't read about this in the mainstream media, but there has been a flood of people, previous sheriffs, leaving the Sheriff's Department because overwhelmingly they too are being militarized and dictated to and ordered to infiltrate local groups, infiltrate certain church groups, and report back to their superiors. So this Army task force that designated and designed this program took on a new name, and it was the Directorate of Civil Disturbance Planning and Operations. The Army Task Force transformation into the Directorate occurred during the mass rioting that broke out in 19 cities after the assassination of Martin Luther King. So, in essence, the contemporary roots of the militarized efforts to suppress domestic rebellion lie in the U.S. Army Master Plan, Department of Defense Civil Disturbance Plan 55-2, identified as Garden Plot. Since at least 1968, the military has expended billions and billions of dollars in this effort. The plan is operational right now. And there's an examination which I will give you of the United States Air Force Civil Disturbance Plan, which is also a part of Garden Plot, and details the implementing and supporting plan for the Department of the Army Civil Disturbance Plan. It talks about the employment of the USAF forces in civil disturbances, and it's specifically drawn up to support the Secretary of the Army as DoD Executive Agent for Civil Disturbance Control Operations, with airlift and logistical support in assisting civil authorities in the restoration of law and order. This is where the U.S. Air Force was brought into this whole operational plan. The plan opens with some basic assumptions, namely that civil disturbances requiring intervention with military forces may occur simultaneously in any of the 50 states. And it goes on, the sections of counterintelligence, targets, and requirements. The plan does specify its targets, namely as those disruptive elements, extremists, or dissidents perpetrating civil disorder. However, a civil disturbance is defined as a riot, acts of violence, insurrections, unlawful obstructions, unlawful assembly, and or other disorders prejudicial to public law and order. The term civil disturbance includes all domestic conditions requiring the use of federal armed forces pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 15, Title 10, United States Code. United States Code. Did you get that? Not United States of America Code, because this is not about you. It's about protecting their interests. So, again, while the current president's NDAA executive order is alarming, remember that it's built upon all of these prior executive orders. It goes on about the U.S. Army and Marine Corps units and the ways in which they're designated. And then there's this. In addition, the DOMs maintain an around-the-clock civil disturbance command center to monitor incipient and ongoing disturbances. We know these centers today as fusion centers. If you Google fusion centers, United States of America, you will see the plethora of them spread out across the country. Here, I think the commercials are coming on, so this is a good place for me to start. We'll be right back.
Heart-related health problems affect millions of people each year. Maybe you're one of the many who suffer from issues related to angina pain, high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, unbalanced cholesterol, irregular heartbeat, or clogged arteries. There is a solution that doesn't involve expensive prescription drugs that only mask the problem and leave you with horrible side effects. If you are ready to live your life free of sickness, pain, and fear, live your life with increased vitality, energy, and youthfulness, and experience your body healing itself, then you're ready for Heart and Body Extract from Healthy Hearts Club. Heart and Body Extract has a 23-year proven track record of using certified organic herbs that make up an excellent formula to balance and support the heart and circulatory system. In as little as 2 weeks, you can feel amazing results when your 2-month supply of Heart and Body Extract today. Call 1-866-295-5305 or go to hbextract.com.
If you're taking 1, 2, 5, or more nutritional supplements every day, please stop. Simplify your supplementation with Bio Superfood, the most advanced nutritional whole food supplement you can buy. Men, women, children, and even Olympic athletes the world over have discovered Bio Superfood from BioAge.com and now take just one nutritional supplement instead of many. The Bio Superfood formulas are whole food products composed with 4 of the most nutrient-dense algae species found on Earth. Bio Superfood for the brain helps with focus, memory, clarity, and mood. Bio Superfood is a strong defender in the fight against radiation exposure. Bio Superfood has 0 toxicity, is safe, and has no contraindications whatsoever. Learn more and order your Bio Superfood formulas at BioAge.com. That's spelled BIOAGE.com, BioAge.com. Or you can call 877-288-9116. That's 877-288-9116. BioAge, the age of advanced organics.
Hello, this is Ty Bollinger, author of the best-selling book, Cancer, Step Outside the Box. I want you to know some very important information. In 1985, President Ronald Reagan requested that Carnivora be sent directly to the White House at a time when only the president could obtain this world-class healer. Now, 27 years later, Carnivora capsules are used around the world to keep people healthy. Now you can protect yourself and your loved ones in this age of superbugs with 17 naturally occurring compounds that instinctively respond to abnormal cells only without harming a single normal cell. If you want to stay healthy, now's your chance to literally wake up your critical immune cells to attack harmful invaders that don't belong in your body. Call 1-866-VENUS-FLY or order from Carnivora.com. That's CARNIVORA.com. That's 1-866-836-8735, 1-866-VENUS-FLY, or visit Carnivora.com. Protect your immune system. It's the only one you've got.
Hey, this is D.E.Snyder back again, and let's keep going. There's been a lot of discussion that, well, Posse Comitatus protects the civilian population from the military, and in fact, this is patently untrue. The militarization of domestic law enforcement is founded in part upon the Department of Defense Directive 5525.5, DoD cooperation with civilian law enforcement officials, which is dated January 15, 1986, 5 years before congressional drug warriors passed the Military Cooperation with Civilian Law Enforcement Agencies Act, referencing the 1971 version of DoD 3025.12. The directive states that it is the DoD policy to cooperate with civilian law enforcement officials to the extent practical, consistent with the needs of national security and military preparedness. In addition, the military department and defense agencies may provide training to federal, state, and local civilian law enforcement officials. Apparently, military judge advocates have no problem with the 1878 Posse Comitatus Act, which states that whoever, except in cases and under circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution or Act of Congress, willfully uses any part of the Army or the Air Force as a posse comitatus or otherwise to execute the laws shall be fined not more than $10,000 or imprisoned not more than 2 years or both. Nor is there much concern shown for the historic tradition of limiting direct military involvement in civilian law enforcement activities. For even though the Act is cited within the directive as the primary restriction on military participation in civilian law enforcement activities, it's rendered null and void in deference to actions that are taken for the primary purpose of furthering a military or foreign affairs function. In fact, under guidance established by the Secretaries of the Military Department and the Directors of Defense agencies concerned, the planning and execution of compatibility military training and operations may take into account the need of enforcement officials for information when the collection of the information is an incidental aspect of training performed for a military purpose. It's important to know this because just in the last 3 years, Posse Comitatus has been loosened even more, and it's to the point where it's virtually indistinguishable. It is virtually indistinguishable. It doesn't mean anything anymore, essentially. So something else that you can Google if you're interested is Rex 84, which is, of course, FEMA's blueprint for martial law in America. And FEMA is an interesting little organization. So now, with all of that back history, if you understand that what we have today, after these decades of war in foreign countries, we have all this military hardware which has come back to American shores. It's been refurbished, it's been fixed and adapted, and it's been rolled out to police departments and sheriff's departments around the United States. In addition, thanks to Michael Chertoff, as I have told you before, an Israeli citizen, and who was the director of something here in the United States. I really want you to go and Google Michael Chertoff and look at him as an insidious little shit. Yes, I did say that. What has happened is the total militarization of the police, of military tactics. They have attacked our freedom of speech. They have an utter disrespect for civil law. There's been a systematic suppression of all dissent. Have you looked at any YouTube videos of what happened during Occupy? Have you seen any videos of how these people are being treated? Have you seen YouTube videos of the incredible violence associated with tasering of people that have not been accused of a crime? The aggression of our police today is of utmost concern to everybody. If you understand that the police are civil servants, and as such, they work for you. An American citizen over the age of 21 has more authority to effect a civilian arrest than the police do. We have given these people too much authority, and they are hurting us. They are hurting our children. They are hurting our women. They are hurting everybody. And we need to take back some of this power. And the way to take the power back is to understand that they didn't have it in the first place. So, DARPA. DARPA has been working on super soldiers that are genetically modified transhumans. Yes, I did say the word transhumans. It's terribly insidious. And I think that it goes more with what I'm doing towards the end of the show. But I wanted to put that out there because there are some people that listen to my shows that go off and Google all sorts of things, and then they send me emails. And I'm going to throw this in right now because I always run out of time at the end. Any comments and questions that you have can be directed to my email, and I do respond to emails. and that is canarychronicles@outlook.com. All right. We recently had Urban Shield, which is a tactical exercise across the Bay Area, which is where I live. And we saw it go hot. Of course, they're not going to say that it went hot. They are going to say that in an unaffiliated and unassociated area, shit went down. And that's not really what happened. But if you look at the supporting international agencies that were involved with Urban Shield, it's quite illuminating, because Urban Shield has been going for a few years. I think this was their 5th or 6th year. And never before has it had this plethora of supporting international agencies. And I'm going to read you some of them. It was the Consulate General of Israel. It was the country of Brazil. It was Guam. It was Israeli Yemen, the country of Norway, Switzerland, the French RAID team, RAID, the Kingdom of Jordan, the Kingdom of Bahrain, Singapore, Canada, and Qatar. These were the supporting international agencies in a local tactical exercise. Kind of creepy. All right, moving on. There's one thing that I want to just talk about quickly that is part of this rollout to take your guns. And, of course, there's been a lot of talk about guns kill people, and therefore people like Senator Feinstein want to take your guns from you, while she wants to make sure that her goons have access to plenty of guns. And I urge you to go and look at the UN Small Arms Treaty, because you'll notice when you look at it that the UN Small Arms Treaty has language that points to warships and other things that are really so obviously not small arms. And then the very last thing is handguns. And so it begs the question of why this thing was called the Small Arms Treaty when it's got all these other incredibly large weaponry, impractical to be identified under a Small Arms Treaty, because you just can't take a warship and put it in a suitcase. But something that we have failed to address is mental health issues that are to blame for violence. That's even the false flag events with all of these crazy lone shooters that are clearly false flags and are clearly psyops events. We should be talking about the drugs that these people are on, because at least 75% of our population at some point is on mood-altering prescription medication. Here's a investigative report, and it was ordered by President Obama, and it was titled The Priorities for Research to Reduce the Threat of Firearm Violence. It's 124 pages, but it's very, very interesting. And there was also a document that was put out by the Secret Service a couple decades ago. And that particular document nullifies the need to have even done this particular document, because it identifies the fact that you cannot identify random shooters and random violence on the streets of America. I'll be right back.
Hey guys, Charlie McGrath here at WideAwakeNews.com, and I'm here to tell you I believe that Chris and the folks over at SeedsNow.com offer the best product at the best prices with the best service of anybody in the market. But don't take my word for it. Listen to what some of their customers have to say. Joshua in Florida writes, exceeded my expectations. Shipping was prompt and a number of my plants are already starting to sprout. Thanks for being great. And Ryan in California writes, I just received my Homestead Seed Bank, my all-in-one prepper pack, and seed-to-seed storage and growing guidebook, and I could not be more pleased. Thanks, Seeds Now. Now I can start growing and get off the GMOs. Keep up the great work. And the list goes on and on. Guys, it's time to make seedsnow.com an integral part of your long-term preparedness strategy. Please call them at 877-344-4669. That number again, 877-344-4669. Or better yet, visit them today at seedsnow.com.
Known worldwide as the most consistently fascinating, informative, and unique program on radio, the Jeff Rense Program can be yours to listen to anytime, anywhere, whenever you want to hear it. For pennies a day, our subscribers can download any of Jeff's thousands of programs featuring a treasury of newsmakers, researchers, eyewitnesses, and incredible subjects, all in MP3 commercial-free, crystal-clear 56-bit digital sound, and take these often unforgettable programs with them wherever they go. As a subscriber, you can also listen live at airtime, online, anywhere in the world, or browse through our archives of over 10,000 hours of legendary broadcasts. Subscribe now by taking the link at the top of Rense.com and enrich your mind with the most unique panorama of vital information and the best independent, honest journalism in radio. Look for the Subscribe Now link on Rense.com and give yourself the knowledge you need for these unprecedented times.
Charlie McGrath of WideAwakeNews.com here with a question for my friends at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion. What do they know that we don't? Insiders and a who's who list of elite have made it crystal clear that we are headed for catastrophe, putting out warning after warning, urging people to batten down the hatches. Billionaire George Soros has recently been dumping stocks and at the same time acquiring millions in gold. In fact, in a recent interview, he was quoted as saying, "I'm not here to cheer you up. The situation is as serious and difficult as I've experienced in my career." Out of control government deficit spending and a Federal Reserve that's only solution seems to be print more fiat currency will lead to a weaker dollar and massive inflation on necessity items such as energy and food. If you have wealth to protect, please visit my friends at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion. Gabe Elton and the folks at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion have many Wide Awake News customers because they're honest, they're fair, and they won't sell you paper promises or product they do not have. Call Gabe Elton at 800-552-4109. That number again, 800-552-4109, or visit them online at austincoins.com.
Make a promise, take a vow, trust your feelings, it's easy now. Understand the voice within and feel a change already beginning.
All right, let's keep moving on. There's a name that you need to know. There's not much known about this person. The name is Audrey Thomason. Audrey Thomason. So you need to Google her, and a white paper that she put out. It was a thesis paper that she did. She belonged to a think tank, and she put out this thesis paper. It's called Apocalypse Equation. The sustainable population of our world can only be 1.5 billion human beings as compared to the United Nations estimate of the 7 billion that we've reached in October of, I think it was 2011, right? We reached 7 billion, and the 10 billion estimated by 2100. So Ms. Thomason argued in her thesis that our world's population has been artificially inflated for the past nearly 100 years by a non-sustainable petrochemical fossil fuel-based global economy that, if left unchecked, could very well destroy all life on Earth, not just human beings. She went on to state in her thesis that any population suffering economic collapse and reverting to basic needs will be ungovernable and pose tremendous risks to the state, leading to wholesale breakdown of law and order. Ms. Thomason further argued in her Apocalypse Equation thesis that since the collapse of civilization as we know it is inevitable, world leaders should consider the possibility of a mass genocide to reduce our world's population to a more sustainable level commensurate with our Earth's resources. Of course, the chilling genocidal scenario, which is envisioned by her thesis, begins with a limited nuclear conflict targeted at major population centers, but designed to limit the fallout of radiation, of course. Next would be the release of toxic chemical and biological agents. She suggests they could be blamed on terrorist entities, to be followed by forced mass migration of populations to more sustainable living environments. She goes on to envision these sustainable living environments as being large population centers with mass transit systems where no personal vehicles would be allowed, and the rural areas would be completely depopulated except for government-run agricultural systems. Prior to the initiation of these apocalyptic events, Ms. Thomason argues for the establishment of government-run and protected concentration camps. Hello, FEMA, where persons of worth can be protected while the masses of their fellow citizens die by the millions and billions. Those deemed persons of worth would include scientists, doctors, technical specialists, etc. Her plan includes the genocide of 4.5 billion people through controlled nuclear war and the remainder cleaned out with biological and chemical weapons. Now, you're going, well, so she wrote a paper, a lot of people write papers and they get ignored. Except this delightful lady was not ignored. There is a photograph of the Situation Room during the supposed raid on Osama bin Laden. And if you look at that picture and you look at the right-hand corner of the picture towards the back, you see a perky little brunette sticking her head out between the shoulders of some other people. And that is Audrey Thomason. So, you should probably Google this document and have a look at it because she was immediately embraced by the White House and the Department of Defense as soon as they read her thesis paper. And that brings us to something that the World Health Organization has just recently revealed. The World Health Organization, together with the International Agency for Research on Cancer, listed the main source of outdoor air pollution as transport, power generation, industrial and agricultural emissions, heating and cooking in residential buildings. And the team said that there was sufficient evidence that exposure to outdoor air pollution causes lung cancer and inflammation. And the World Health Organization has also in the past acknowledged that inflammation is the precursor to disease. That brings me to chemtrails, aerosol geoengineering, and bioengineering. You knew I was going to go somewhere with this. Chemtrails, persistent contrails, no longer a rumor, but a fact. I highly recommend that you go to my friend Dane's site. It's www.geoengineeringwatch.org. And plan on spending lots of time there and reading up all the research and all the stuff that Dane has been doing, along with all of his incredibly smart friends. Now, some of the things that are in chemtrails are thorium, cadmium, chromium, potassium, titanium, magnesium, arsenic, manganese, lead, barium salts. I think I said aluminum, I'm not sure. Then there's other classes of particulates, which is polymer nanofibers, desiccated erythrocytes, which is free-dried red blood cells, mold spores, and fungus. And as you know, what goes up must come down. And all of these things have landed, are floating around in our air, firstly. They have landed in our soils, and they are in our water. They have affected our crops. Since 2010, there is sufficient evidence that on a global scale, chemtrailing has affected crop production and cattle and animal health. We've seen an enormous increase in stillbirths in our cattle, lowered fertility rates, and deformities, soft hooves, cleft palates, all kinds of things. So if we understand that these things have affected our food supply, and we understand that these things have affected our protein and cattle, then we have to go, what could they possibly be doing to human health? Yes, and much you may ask. I want to ask you to Google something else, and that would be human experiments, aerosoling, chemicals, United States. This has been going on since the 50s, when aerosols were first discovered and were sprayed in the air to test what they would do to people and how far the winds would take them. There's a particular one that was sprayed in the Bay Area, Marsenescens. It's a motile organism, and you should go and look into this, because it had a very critical role in biowarfare testing. It was originally believed to be a non-pathogenic or saprophyte, and it was used as a simulant in biological warfare testing by the U.S. military. And it was studied in field tests as a substitute for other bacterium, which were being weaponized at the time. And so on September 26th and 27th, 1950, the U.S. Navy conducted a secret experiment named Operation Sea Spray, in which some of this was released by bursting balloons of it over urban areas in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. Although the Navy claimed that the bacteria was harmless, 11 patients at a local hospital developed a rare, serious urinary tract infection. While you say that it's only 11, here's what's happened since then. San Francisco is a hotbed for pneumonia. San Francisco Bay Area, still in wood and in wood chips, in soils in the Bay Area, we still find enormous live bacterial growths of these things. So the U.S. government, of course we know, has a long history of human testing and aerosol spraying. We recently had a publicly announced spray test in the subways of New York. And so I see I'm fast running out of time. This whole thing about bioweapons and biowarfare and chemtrailing, the CDC has now announced that Morgellons is real. Before, they had said that it was a physical manifestation of a mental disease, in which case we are all fantastically gifted that we can manifest fibers coming out of our bodies, because Morgellons is, and for those of you that don't know, again, you need to Google, because the Trans-Pacific Pact, the biggest thing about the Trans-Pacific Pact is that it seeks to limit intellectual freedom on the internet, and all this information is going to go away. It's a primary thrust of this entire document. So you need to go and Google these things now. Morgellons is causing inflammation in people and is a precursor to disease. Morgellons is also a very interesting thing in that these fibers have Polaris. And if they have Polaris, they organize. There are plenty of tests that have been done on this. I have replicated many of these tests. They have Polaris. Once you have introduced them to a magnet, they never forget. They will consistently move in the same way. And if you understand that our U.S. military has non-lethal weapons that take advantage, that are acoustic, and they take advantage of Wi-Fi and airwave energies, you will come to understand, you might not understand now, but you will come to understand that if you have a body, a flesh organism that has water in it and that has nanofibers or Morgellons fibers in it, it is a kill switch. So if you go back and you take Audrey Thomason's document and you fast forward the premise of her paper into the technology that has been developed today, you very quickly understand that we are all walking around under a grid of Wi-Fi and satellite systems, and that we are able to be directly targeted with this Wi-Fi network. Another website to go to, www.antennasearch.com. You plug in your street address and your zip code, and it will show you. You can ask it to generate a report. This is very important to do so that you can see what you are sitting under. As always, I run out of time. This is D.E.Snyder. I'll actually be back on Wednesday with my guest, Suzanne Posel.
The next one could be me. You see, the
the soldiers that are out today to brush the dust with bulletproof vests away. It's ironic, at times like this you pray, but a bomb blew the mosque up yesterday. There's bombs on the buses, bikes, roads, inside your market, your shops, your clothes. My dad, he's got a lot of fear, I know, but enough pride inside, nothing let that show. My brother had a book he would hold with pride, a little red cover with a broken spine on the back. He hand wrote a quote inside, when the rich wage war, it's the poor who die. Meanwhile, the leader just talks away, stuttering and mumbling the nightly news that would play. The rest of the world watching at the end of the day, both scared and angry, like what did he say?
Oxygen. It's nature's oldest therapy and plays an essential role in destroying viruses, bacteria, mold, yeast, and fungus, and keeping the human body healthy and strong. Now, you can give your body and your immune system a mega boost of disease-fighting oxygen with all-natural Oxy-C. With so many people now leading a sedentary indoor lifestyle, most are in a chronic state of oxygen deprivation, which sets up a perfect environment for disease, general fatigue, and a host of other symptoms. Oxy-C is yours in simple, convenient capsules. Nothing to mix, nothing to hassle with. Take it with juice or water anytime. Feel a cold or flu approaching? Have no energy or spark anymore? Try all-natural Oxy-C and prepare to be amazed. Oxy-C is only available from New Earth Health Solutions at Rinse.com. Look for the New Earth banner at Rinse.com.
In 2007, one man, Mike Dillard, made 5 predictions which forecasted the 2008 economic crisis and the pending Eurozone collapse. 3 brand new, shocking, must-watch videos with predictions for the coming year. www.the3videos.com. Over the past year, Mike Dillard has helped thousands of ordinary people create and recover wealth by tapping into the black box investing strategies the big banks don't want you to know about. www.the3videos.com. As the European banking system implodes and governments collapse at breakneck speeds, the next 12 months will be the most anticipated and important months in modern human history. This will make 2008 look like a walk in the park. Everyone will be affected. Go to www.the3videos.com now. Learn how to prepare your family and prosper during the global financial collapse.
You're listening to the Rinse Radio Network, nationwide and worldwide on the net and at Rinse.com.
IRN USA Radio News. I'm Hope